Hello again. I'm Clark Saunders. I'm the words writing half of the songwriting team of Castles and Saunders. Craig Castles is the composer who writes the music. This is the second time I've talked about a collection of songs for children called Tales and Tunes of the Old Testament. Today, I want to say something about two more songs in the collection. It's true of the stories that we know and love best, the stories that we have heard or read or told countless times, that we know how the story ends. But of course, the characters in the story don't know that. In the case of the story of Noah and the flood, which we retell in the song Rainbows and Promises, based on Genesis chapters 7 and 8, we know that the story ends with a rainbow and a promise. But of course, Noah didn't know that. So the first verse asks rhetorically, did he know that at his journey's end a rainbow would appear, with promises to lighten up the skies? And the refrain goes on, after each verse, to paraphrase the lines that come at the end of the story, where God says, I will never again destroy every living creature as I have done. As long as earth endures, seed time and harvest shall not cease. The story of Noah's Ark has been told and set to music countless times. It is one of those stories that easily captures a child's imagination. We decided to tell the story from beginning to end, but for the sake of brevity, we left out some details. It is the verses of the song that carry the narrative. Notice how in measures 7 and 8, Craig has provided a rising chromatic scale which perfectly suits the words in the verse 1, and the water level soon began to rise, and verse 2, and he closed the doors and they began to float. Verse 2 goes on with a couple of touches that we think should engage children. Noah wonders when the rain will drip its final drop, and many children love to use the occasional big word, so we describe the ark as claustrophobic, which it may well have been. And you will see in the refrain that the words rainbows and promises and as long as earth endures are echoed in the piano, with the option of dividing the singers into two groups, one repeating those words as the echo. The beat of the song provides a lilting rhythm that suits both the storytelling verses and the comforting message that comes with the refrain. The most important part of the story is the assurance that is summed up in the title, Rainbows and Promises.
When Noah built the ark, as the rain began to fall, and the water level soon began to rise, did he know that at his journey's end a rainbow would appear, with promises to lighten up the skies? There would be rainbows and promises as long as earth endures. The seed time and the harvest will not cease, and God will not destroy the world that God has made, and God will always wish us joy and peace. When Noah welcomed all of those creatures to the ark, and he closed the doors and they began to float, did he wonder when the pouring rain would drip its final drop, and they could leave that claustrophobic boat? There would be rainbows and promises as long as earth endures. The seed time and the harvest will not cease, and God will not destroy the world that God has made, and God will always wish wish us joy and peace. When Noah told a dove, "Go and look for drying land," it at first came back with nothing, then a leaf. It set out a third and final time and never did return, and Noah had a feeling of relief, for he found rainbows and promises. As long as earth endures, the seed time and the harvest will not cease, and God will not destroy the world that God has made, and God will always wish us joy and peace.
The story of the flood is told in just over 2 chapters in the book of Genesis. Abraham, on the other hand, is a prominent figure who dies 15 chapters after he makes his first appearance. A song that told his entire story would have to be very long indeed. So Craig and I decided to choose one theme from his life and illustrate it with a couple of events from the saga. The result is the song "When Abraham Set Out," based on Genesis 12 verses 1 to 4 and 18 verses 1 to 15, and the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 11 verses 8 to 12. Abraham is perhaps best remembered for the covenant that God made with him. A covenant was an agreement between 2 parties in which each party undertook certain obligations. In this case, those obligations involved mutual faithfulness. In return for Abraham's trust, God promised to protect him and reward him with descendants as countless as the stars. That covenant is expressed in the words of the refrain: "He would be faithful to God as God would be faithful to him." The first verse recalls Abraham's willingness to go to a land that God promised to show him. In the second verse, the faith of Abraham and that of his wife Sarah are tested. They are told that even though they are getting on in years, the fulfillment of God's promise of numerous descendants will be ensured by the birth of a son. Not only are these 2 crucial episodes described in Genesis, they are also referred to in the New Testament letter to the Hebrews, when the writer lists examples of faith and faithfulness in the lives of key Old Testament figures. For the verses, Craig has chosen a 4/4 meter that evokes an image of a camel train in the Middle East as Abraham makes his way to an unknown land. But the refrain switches to a 6/8 rhythm before returning to 4/4 time in anticipation of the next verse, the one that describes Abraham and Sarah's surprising discovery that she is to have a child in her old age. Both of the incidents described in the song are stories that can connect with the imagination and understanding of children. And a final refrain reminds them, and all of us, that even today, and in ways that may surprise us, God keeps faith with us. God can be trusted.
When Abraham set out for a land he did not know, he trusted that his God would know the way. And though his journey might be long and hard and often slow, he looked to God to guide him every day. He would be faithful to God as God would be faithful to him. God's word was trusty and true. God would be faithful to him, so he would be faithful to God, and God would always see his journey through. When Abraham and Sarah were getting on in years, God promised them that they would have a son. And though they surely wondered how a thing like this could be, they learned that they could trust the Holy One. They would be faithful to God as God would be faithful to them. God every promise would keep. God would be faithful to them, so they would be faithful to God. For God was like a shepherd to the sheep. Then let us be faithful to God, for God will be faithful to us. God will not stray from our side. God will be faithful to us, so let us be faithful to God. For God is always there to be our guide.